I wanted to share a cautionary tale on the importance of using fresh lime in any sort of plastering or masonry work where the lime is going to be the actual binder holding things together. Now, in the U.S., the vast majority of internal plastering that's still done is done using gypsum-based plasters. The vast majority of masonry and external stuccoing is done using cement-based materials. And while cement is a stronger material, for a number of reasons, lime can be considered a much better material for masonry work, especially in the case of historic masonry. And it's also a much better material for internal plastering as well, for a number of reasons. Now, lime sets by a process of carbonation. Calcium hydroxide absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, turning into calcium carbonate, or essentially limestone. Now, about 9 months ago, I was patching some plaster, and I mixed up a 2-to-1 sand to lime plaster mix using type S finishing lime, a dry hydrate. And after doing the plastering, I had a little material left over, and out of sort of idleness, I made this little plug. And again, this was about 9 months ago, and this is carbonated really well, essentially turning back into calcium carbonate or a limestone-like product. Now, I had mixed up the dry hydrate with water, forming a lime putty or paste in a 5-gallon tub, and after I was done, I put the lid on the tub and put it in the basement, out of sight, out of mind. And as long as the tub stayed sealed, it was protected from atmospheric carbon dioxide, and it wouldn't set up, and it would be usable almost indefinitely. In fact, in some places in Europe, the story is they require putty to be 20 years old for use in replastering historic sites in, I believe it's the Netherlands. In any event, in addition to the putty that I had in the tub, I also had about a half a bag of the dry hydrate left, and I rolled over the top. I rolled over the top of the bag, sort of sealing it, and put it aside, out of sight, out of mind. Now, about 3 months ago, I decided to try an experiment. I took some of the putty from my tub, mixed up a 2-to-1 sand to lime mix, and made another little plaster. And basically, I just spread it on a little plastic plate. And this is about an 1/8 of an inch thick, or 3/16. And so it's not thick enough to have any real strength, but it has carbonated nicely. And again, it's a nice, perfectly sound material for using to make plaster or mortar. At the same time, I also mixed up some plaster from the dry hydrate that I had in the bag that was just sort of loosely sealed. And although at first blush it appears to be a perfectly adequate material, it looks like it's set nicely, in reality it has absolutely no strength at all. And what's apparently happened is the powdered lime, the powdered what's called dry hydrate, had absorbed atmospheric carbon dioxide from the atmosphere while still in a powdered form, and essentially turned into, what amounts to powdered calcium carbonate or powdered limestone. All the reactive properties had been lost. And looking at the dry hydrate, it looks fresh, it looks fine. It's a very dry, fluffy material, almost like powdered sugar or perhaps flour. It still looks just as good as it looked when I first opened the bag, and yet appearances obviously can be deceiving. So this has obviously absolutely no value as a binder. What it turned into essentially was mud, and it dried by evaporation with no strength whatsoever. Now, this was sort of a painful lesson for me, because about 3 years ago, I repointed a large part of our foundation, of our stone foundation, using a bag of lime I got from my local big box store, probably Home Depot. And, the lime may have been sitting there on the shelf for 6 months. Right now at my local Home Depot, there's a pallet of lime that's been there for at least 9 months. Once I bought it, I brought it home, and the work had stretched out over the course of a long summer. And so by the time I got to the end of the summer, I was using material that was probably a full year old. And in fact, a lot of the repointing I did, if you rub your thumbnail against it, it just sort of powders away. So obviously I've got to pull all that out and redo it. Lime is, again, especially for historic masonry, using cement-based mortars, or even using, as the National Park Service recommends, a mixture of lime and cement, is almost a crime against historic architecture. There's no good reason to do it, and there are a lot of bad reasons I guess good reasons not to do it. There would be bad to do it, so there are bad reasons to do it and good reasons not to do it. In any event, this is sort of an object lesson in the importance of using fresh, hydrated lime. That was pretty interesting.